Yes, welcome, grade 10 life science students. Last time we've been talking about the ecosystem. We've been talking of ecosystems, how organisms interrelate in the in their ecosystems, in their habitats, in the environment. And then we talked about the types of interdependence, the food chain and the food web and all those things. I'm sure you saw the revision work that I posted. Just check on it and then it just gives us a guidance. Today we want to talk about the flow charts, nitrogen fixation, and also carbon cycle, as well as water cycle. So what we're gonna look at today is these three: the carbon cycle, the nitrogen cycle, the water cycle. We need to be able to understand the various stages or processes that are involved in water cycle, how the water changes its states, and actually what happens for it to be like that. And also, finally, we'll be talking about the carbon cycle that you need to understand again that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is converted or it is used by plants during photosynthesis. We also have the emission of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because of fossils combustion. We talk about fossils and fossil fuels, the decomposition, how animals also uh, release carbon dioxide and all this. We need to look at them and we'll be able to interrelate the various elements that are involved in there. So without wasting any time, just look forward. We are going to discuss about the carbon cycle. We are going to talk about the carbon cycle and then we talk about the water cycle. We talk about the water cycle, and then finally we'll talk about the obviously the first one is the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen cycle is one of those fundamental processes that is very important as much as we talk about vegetation, as much as we talk about plants, because for plants to grow they need they need nutrients. So we are looking at a nutrient cycle here. We have got atmospheric atmospheric nitrogen. We are talking about nitrogen in the air, or we can talk about nitrogen in the atmosphere. That is what we are talking about. That is what we mean by atmospheric nitrogen, and then it is converted. We have got a process of nitrogen fixation that we talk about here. Nitrogen fixation for it to be used by plants, and also uh, plants are eaten by animals. And then we talk about the animals, they die. We have got dead organisms. We have got also the release of the nitrogen back into, the release of nitrogen. And then we talk about the nitrates and then the nitrites and nitrates. So we also need to understand nitrogen in the atmosphere, how it is converted into nitrites, like looking at process B, which we are going to look at here, and also how the nitrites are converted into nitrogen in the atmosphere. So we are talking about denitrification on the other side, this side. Denitrification, whereby nitrogen in the in the soil is converted into nitrogen in the atmosphere. So now that is what we are looking at E, and then we are going to talk about that as well. So let's answer the questions that are basically attached here. Describe the processes shown by A and B, by which nitrogen is converted to nitrates. When nitrogen is converted into nitrates, what are the processes that are involved? So we need to look at our diagram and then we identify process A where nitrogen is converted into nitrites. So we have got first A, nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen. So we said it is nitrogen in the air or nitrogen in the atmosphere. So what is this process that is indicated by A, which converts nitrogen in the air into the soil, so therefore it can be used by plants. So we talk about nitrogen fixation is what is happening at A. Nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation That is A. I'm saying A is nitrogen fixation. Uh, so therefore, what we need to understand is that nitrogen gas from the atmosphere, as you see there, nitrogen gas from the atmosphere, nitrogen gas from the atmosphere is converted into ammonia. It is converted into ammonia, or we can say it can ammonium compounds, or it can be ammonium, or it can be ammonium compounds. It is converted into ammonium compounds, and then this is done by nitrogen fixing bacteria, compounds by nitrogen fixing bacteria is the one that converts nitrogen in the air. E.g., we can talk about the rhizobium. E.g., we can talk about the rhizobium. It can also be done by lightning. Lightning also can convert nitrogen in the air into nitrogen in the soil that is used by plants. So what we are saying is nitrogen gas from the atmosphere is converted into ammonium compounds by nitrogen fixing bacteria, which is rhizobium or lightning. So therefore it can be used by what? By plants. That is what is shown by what? By A. It is nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation is what is shown by what? By A. And then B, we are saying B is this B, we have got B, it represents atmospheric nitrogen is converted also into nitrites. So what is also this other process where nitrogen in the atmosphere is converted into nitrites? So B, what is B? B actually it also represents nitrification. B is representing nitrification. B is representing nitrification. That is B. B is nitrification that you can see there. So we need to explain what is nitrification. Ammonium compounds are converted into nitrites, into nitrates, into nitrites, then nitrates by nitrifying bacteria. We have got the Nitrobacter, for example, is one of the bacteria that converts nitrogen in the atmosphere. It converts the ammonium compounds into nitrites and then nitrates by these bacteria. So we are saying B, it is representing nitrification. It is representing nitrification where ammonium compounds are converted. They are converted. They are converted into nitrites. They are converted into nitrites and then nitrates. It is nitrites and then nitrates by nitrifying, which is done by nitrifying which is done by nitrifying. It is done by nitrifying bacteria. By nitrifying bacteria Uh, for example, for example, we have got for example, we can talk about the Nitrobacter. The Nitrobacter is one of the examples of bacteria that can also convert ammonium compounds into nitrites and then nitrates. Therefore, the process is nitrification. So as you can see from the diagram there, what you can see here is that we are having the nitrification process. Atmospheric nitrogen is converted into nitrites. Therefore, I mean nitrites and then into nitrates by a nitrifying bacteria, which you are seeing there. As you can see, that's the process that is taking place there. So now we are saying this nitrogen cycle, please look also on the channel. You also find out that it is very deeply analyzed and it is well, what you call, analyze in its completeness. So now what you need to understand here is that those are the two processes according to the question that we have answered or that we are asked. And then we are going to also check these on our channel. You shall find out that we are going to have the complete analysis and explanation about nitrogen cycle. So for today's concept, let's just answer the question that are analyzed or that are given here. So we have got the water cycle in nature, the water cycle in nature that is given. We have got the atmosphere, and then we have got process, we have got the sea, we have got the water cycle. I'm saying here we have got the sea, from the sea, we have a process where water is going into the atmosphere, which is represented by A. B, we have got vegetation, and then there is a process by which water is lost by vegetation into the atmosphere. We have got the clouds that are also releasing something which we call water also into the ground. And then we have got X and Y there, which is showing maybe the concept of aspect. And we have got our sun, which is also given in this concept. So now what is the question saying is identify the processes represented by A, B, C. The process is represented by A, B, C, and D. A, as you can see, what is represented by A, you can actually see that is what evaporation. I can see, I mean, we can confirm together that A is representing what? Evaporation. As you can see that water from the sea is turned into is converted into gas. So A is what? A is evaporation, which we can see there. Water is turned into what? Into gas, in the atmosphere. The process that is responsible for that is what is evaporation in our water cycle. And then we have got B. B is showing loss of water from vegetation. So water vapor released from plants, we call that transpiration. Transpiration is when water vapor is lost from plants alone. When it is plants alone, we say that process is called transpiration. But if it is both plants and water sources, when it is both, we call that evapotranspiration. But here B is representing vegetation alone. So water lost from vegetation alone. When water is lost from vegetation alone, we call that transpiration. And then C. C is actually the formation of clouds. Clouds formation. What we call cloud formation, it is called what? Condensation. C is representing condensation. It is condensation, the process through which uh, clouds are formed into the atmosphere. It is because of the loss of heat from what? From rising air, which we call that the loss of acid, I mean the loss of latent heat or vaporization. Water, therefore, I mean this process results in the formation of clouds. we call that condensation. D is showing the release, or we're talking about precipitation, which is representing precipitation, the fall of water from the clouds. That is called precipitation. Precipitation is D. And then we can actually also maybe need to understand that there is also, maybe if we're going to put also another water that might also flow on the ground, and then it flows to go into water bodies or into water sources, water running on top of the ground, we call that surface runoff. Surface uh surface runoff. And then we have got also water that sinks into the ground. When the water sinks into the ground, what is that process that is taking place there? It is called infiltration. Infiltration, the sinking of rainwater into the ground, we call that infiltration, which we can say that this is represented by groundwater, which I mean infiltration forms groundwater, which can also cause groundwater flow. We can also have groundwater flow. We can also talk about other additional processes that we might talk about, which can also maybe look at in the later stage. So this is the water cycle. It is the change of water into various states because of the hydrological processes that are involved. The water cycle stages that are there turns water into various states. So therefore, we need to understand these, and we need to be able to name and explain them. That is A, B, C, D processes that are shown there. So let's just get the next question. The next question is saying, name two weather elements that play a role in this cycle. Weather elements that are responsible for water cycle. We are saying what weather elements that play a role in this cycle. We are talking about which cycle? The water cycle. Weather elements that plays a role there. What are those weather elements? We can talk about one, temperature. As you see there, we are saying we can talk about temperature. Temperature is the one that is responsible for these states of matter of water. Water is changing its states because of temperature. So temperature hits the earth, it hits the water bodies, water evaporates, the evaporation, water is changing into gas. So temperature is one of the weather elements that we can talk about, which we need to understand. And then the evaporation of water also is affected also because of wind. Wind also can be another weather element that is responsible in terms of the water cycle. We also maybe need to, we cannot forget also, we can also not forget number three, we can also not forget rainfall, because if there is no rainfall, we cannot have the water cycle. So rainfall is quite important also, which is forming or adding the water that we are talking about. And then we may also want to talk about sunshine. Sunshine, sunshine can also be another additional factor that we can add as a weather element responsible for the process of hydrological cycle. And then lastly, I can also talk about humidity, the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. The amount of water vapor in the atmosphere basically affects the hydrological cycle. The hydrological cycle, the chances to which we can receive rainfall, it's because of the humidity. It's because of the water in the atmosphere. If the atmosphere is saturated, if the atmosphere is too dry, there are two scenarios that can result there. In a situation where the atmosphere is very humid, we are to experience uh, continuous rainfall we are to experience some form of rainfall that is sometimes continuous, because there is higher chances of condensation, there is higher chances of cloud formation, which are resulting in terms of rainfall, therefore continuously forming and resulting in what? In the uh, water cycle taking place. So we have got the last cycle that I said we need to look at, the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle is the last cycle that we want to look at. We have got the carbon cycle. Remember that the amount of gases that are in the atmosphere, they affect. We are to understand the issue of greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases, we are talking about the amount of carbon gases that are in the atmosphere, which affect various factors, which affect various factors. We can talk about issues to do with. We can talk about the concept of climate change. We can talk about ozone depletion. We can talk about uh, global warming and so forth and so forth. So here now we want to look into those processes. So now we have got fossils. What are the sources of gases in the atmosphere? We have got one. We can talk about gas being produced from from fossil fuels combustion. So when fossil fuel is burned, we have got carbon being released. Carbon gas is released into the atmosphere. And then we also have the decomposition of matter. When matter decomposes, we have got the release of gas, the release of methane or methane, which is also a carbon gas that we can talk about. And then when animals also they die, they decompose, their decomposition is adding to that. And then animals also they do respire. We talk about animals do respire. Animals also they do release the waste. Plants also they do transpiration. They also breathe and also release carbon gases. The carbon gases or carbon dioxide, it is necessary for photosynthesis. I'm sure that we can communicate, we can attest and confirm it. Sunlight is necessary for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is important for uh, production or for the growth of plants, which we defined last time in the food chain or in the ecosystem, talking about these vegetation as what as producers, because they have got sunlight, they have got the carbon dioxide, which they are using to make food. And then, obviously, the food carbon fixation by consumers. And then we are talking about animals feeding on the what? On the vegetation. So we have got also plants as they die, their roots also decomposes, and they add also fertility to the soil, fossils and also fossils and fossil fuels forming, which are also used as in combustion to form fossil fuels. So what you need to understand here is that this is the carbon cycle. This is the carbon cycle. So plants release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. How is that possible? They release carbon gases in the atmosphere and then through respiration. So I want us to understand that there are questions that are below here that we quickly want to answer. List 4 ways in which carbon dioxide is retained to the atmosphere as shown in the diagram above. How is carbon dioxide is retained in the atmosphere? Ways in which carbon dioxide is retained in the atmosphere. We are saying 4 ways through which carbon dioxide is retained in the atmosphere. As you can see from this diagram, I guess I have already identified and named these ways that we are talking about. We are seeing, we can talk about one, decomposition. We can talk about decomposition of plants and animals. We can talk about fossil fuels as you can see, fossil fuels that are in combustion is next one, which we can say number 2. We can also talk about animals as they respire. We have got also number 3. And then we can as well talk about plants respiration, as is also shown here as number what? As number 4. So what we are supposed to understand here is that plants are ways in which carbon dioxide is retained into the atmosphere. One, we are saying we need to talk about plants, plant respiration. We talk about 2, animal respiration. Animal respiration. Number 3, we can also talk about fossil fuel combustion. Talk about fossil fuels combustion. I listed these. I was marking them. I'm just listing now. I've been marking them on the board there. And then 4, we can talk about decomposition of dead plants and animals. When plants and animals they die, they decompose. Their decomposition is also adding carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So these are the 4 ways through which carbon dioxide is retained to the atmosphere, as shown in the diagram that we are talking about. I'm saying fossil fuel combustion, plants respiration, animal respiration, decomposition of dead plants and animals. They both decompose as they die. They are producing and adding carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So those are the answers that we need to take note of. And then name the process by which name the process by means of which plants convert carbon dioxide to glucose and starch. What is that process which convert plants convert carbon dioxide to glucose and starch? I'm sure we can see the process that plants convert carbon dioxide to glucose and starch. We are seeing sunlight here. We are seeing photosynthesis by producers, which we say plants, vegetation. So what is the process that is by which plants convert carbon dioxide to glucose? It is what? Through photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. They are producers. Plants, they use light. Plants, they need light in order for them to make their own food. So the process by which that is done, it is through the photosynthesis, the process through which plants make their own food in the presence of what? Water, carbon dioxide, and sunlight. So therefore, we can have we can have also the starch being produced. So now that is what we are supposed to understand here, or that is what the questions, that is what all we were supposed to take note of. Process by which plants convert carbon dioxide to glucose and starch. So, classy, thank you very much for your time. And I hope that you are going to benefit quite a lot in terms of this revision work. You can actually see this carbon cycle is quite understandable and uh, so explicit, and we can really relate and make sense of it. We have talked about the water cycle, elements that place or that are responsible for facilitating the water cycle listed there: temperature, wind, water, rainfall, sunshine, humidity, and obviously that is it, the stages or the processes that are shown or that represents the water cycle are also shown in this answer. Thank you very much for your time, classy, and all the best in the upcoming exams. And please don't forget to subscribe, share, and also uh, like, turn on your notification buttons such that you keep on connected and being informed of our channel. Keep connected. So therefore, we keep on loading excellence, no repeats. Thank you very much.